all my years doing this is like probably 3 times larger than any budget reduction we've ever had to weather.
Today on the Morning Edition, the Anchorage School Board grapples with tough budget cuts, what it can mean for students and staff. Plus,
will the board consider being innovative tonight and change the narrative for this community?
A tough vote and a difficult decision. The Fairbanks School Board moves forward with closing 3 schools. Which schools were spared and what it means for the future.
and later when a $6 million banana meets a hungry Hollywood star, what could possibly go wrong? Chris Hemsworth and Chris Pratt star in a Super Bowl ad that's already going bananas as the Morning Edition continues. Oh my, are we talking about this banana again?
The Super Bowl ads. I have a feeling it's going to be funny because that banana sold for, I don't know, what, millions?
$6 million?
Did they end up throwing it away or eating it? I can't remember.
Well, it's going to be in the commercial. I wonder if that's the banana.
$6 million banana. Wow.
Wild.
Still holding on to some of those chilly conditions this morning, but bringing you to last night. You may have been woken up from a shaker across South Central. We had a magnitude 4.3 that occurred shortly after 11 p.m. Now this was 29 miles west of Anchorage. So far this year, since the start of 2025, South Central has seen 144 earthquakes, the strongest of which was a 4.9. And of course, most of those earthquakes we don't feel, but that gives you an idea of just how active it is underneath the earth. Waking up this morning, we do have some freezing fog. Notice those translucent clouds off in the distance looking towards Anchorage. So be prepared as you get out on the roadways, much like you did see yesterday morning. The first part of the morning commute should provide no significant issues as we welcome in that sunrise and we begin to get more people outdoors and on those roads. That's where we're going to see that best potential for that freezing fog to lead to some lowering visibility. There is a dense fog advisory through at least 11 a.m. this morning. We're at 10 degrees here in Anchorage. Winds remaining on the calmer side as you head above the surface of the earth, 1,000 to 2,000 to 3,000 feet in the atmosphere. We're talking about temperatures warming anywhere from about 15 to 20 degrees from where we're sitting at the surface. So that is that warm air inversion. Visibility down to 4 miles in Anchorage, 9-mile visibility in Portage. We're also seeing some patchy fog across western parts of the Kenai from the Kiski out towards Kenai, Soldotna, even parts of the Kinnick Arm seeing the potential for some patchy freezing fog this morning. So take note of that as you get out on those roadways. With that warm air inversion staying with us, what that does is that traps that cool, moisture-rich air in at the surface. That combined with exhaust from chimneys, heating elements, as well as your vehicles, contributes to that freezing fog formation. And that also allows for the formation of rime ice. So our trees, that vegetation, once that sun rises and the fog clears out, you'll see that rime ice on those trees, which provides a dazzling display and a beautiful photo opportunity for many of those trees. So keep that in mind throughout the day. Temperatures do warm, teens and 20s for inland areas, coastal regions climbing into the 30s. Weather-wise, we stay quiet with plenty of sunshine through the close of this week. I'll have more on that in that 7-day forecast coming up.
We begin this morning covering education. The Anchorage School Board spent hours reviewing a proposed budget that includes significant cuts across the district.
Even board members voiced concerns about the difficult decisions ahead and how they could affect students and staff. Joe Allgood has more from last night's meeting.
The Anchorage School District has proposed budget cuts across the board and through every single grade level. And many of those who would be impacted the most by those budget cuts have come out to voice their concerns.
The proposed plan for the 2025-26 school year attempts to mitigate the $100 million deficit that ASD is currently facing for the upcoming year. In it are proposals to cut staffing across all grade levels, resulting in classroom sizes increasing by about 4 students and the loss of many full-time positions in the school district. Other staff affected include library assistants, which would be eliminated under the proposal. Also included are paraprofessionals and counselors, among others. The proposed budget also eliminates the Ignite program for gifted students and cuts in sports departments, including the elimination of all middle school sports, as well as the elimination of high school hockey, swim, dive, and gymnastics. Notably, there are also cuts within special services, which include special education staff and a reduction in staff for the Alaska School of Deaf and Hard of Hearing.
I'm able to be a part of deaf culture and work on my deaf identity. And I very much cherish my school and the program and working with my counselors. And please keep our staff and counselors and thank you for your time.
Of note, we haven't reduced special education funding in many years. This has been a really hard one to take. I mean, these students need services. But this is kind of extraordinary times, and all my years doing this is like probably 3 times larger than any budget reduction we've ever had to weather in this single proposal.
There is legislation in the House right now to give more funding to Alaska schools, but it's not certain, and the school district has expressed hope that they might be receiving that funding, but it's not something that they can count on. Joe Allgood, Alaska's news source.
New this morning and covering the interior, 3 schools in Fairbanks will close at the end of the school year after the school board voted in favor late last night, moving forward with the district's consolidation plan.
According to the Fairbanks Daily News Miner, Pearl Creek, Midnight Sun, and Two Rivers schools, home to about 800 students, will shut down as the district grapples with a $16 million deficit. Hunter Elementary and Salcha Elementary were originally on the closure list, but were spared after last-minute amendments from the board members.
Many people from the community spoke against the plan, saying newer, different ideas are needed to support the school district in the long term.
Will the board consider being innovative tonight and change the narrative for this community? Instead of making top-down determinations that are happening to communities, will you spend a little more time co-creating with the community, for the community?
Because you keep closing stuff on the outsides of these towns, outside of Fairbanks, keep moving it closer and closer to the heart of the city, and you're going to get more and more people homeschooling and not caring about what value public school has.
As you just heard, in the rural community of Two Rivers, some were concerned closing their school would result in lost revenue. With the decision finalized, the board will now shift its focus to other budget cuts as funding remains uncertain.
In Capitol coverage, as you wake up, the legislature continues to grapple with education funding. The Alaska Senate majority is working to navigate some tough negotiations, aiming to ease current and future debates over school budgets.
So we've been digging through the numbers. We just got in the Finance Committee, I think yesterday, the Department of Education and Early Development through OMB gave us updated numbers on school district fund balances. Some folks may remember a flash in the pan last year. It's crystal clear now. There isn't cash lying around.
Senator Jesse Bjorkman reflected on a school where he's taught since 2009, now facing possible closure. He acknowledged the uncertainty and the impact on parents, students, and educators who are now left wondering what comes next.
Borough School District may have to undertake if necessary funding is not provided by the state. And so folks are concerned about that. They are very concerned about the loss of educational opportunities for their kids.
The Senate has been given 2 weeks by Governor Dunleavy to agree on an education funding proposal. Senator Jesse Keel saying it's going to be a challenge to reach an agreement. And this morning in Juneau, Education and Early Development are scheduled for the first committee meetings. This afternoon, the Labor and Commerce Committee will be discussing childcare in Alaska.
Developing this morning, authorities are expected to release more details about yesterday's officer-involved shooting. It happened just after 1 p.m. along Tudor Road near Piper Street after police received multiple calls about a man with a handgun jumping in and out of traffic. Witnesses reported seeing him point the gun at people and even forced a school bus to swerve. Police say the man walked toward an officer who ordered him to drop the weapon. When he refused, the officer fired, killing him at the scene.
The officer ordered really the subject to take his hand off the gun. And shortly after providing that command, the officer fired approximately 5 rounds. And again, approximate, that's not the exact number, but from what I can tell from the body cam video, it was approximately 5 rounds.
No officers were hurt. This marks Anchorage's 3rd officer-involved shooting this year. The state of Alaska is suing the native village of Eklutna, the U.S. Department of the Interior, and the National Indian Gaming Commission over the new gaming hall in Birchwood.
It's operating on land the state claims was unlawfully designated as a native allotment. The lawsuit argues that for decades, Alaska tribes were not recognized as having territorial jurisdiction over allotments. But in 2024, a new federal opinion changed that, making the land eligible for gaming.
The state claims the defendants overstepped their authority by shifting Alaska's jurisdictional rules This is Alaska's News Source video from a media event at the gaming hall. After the break, heart disease kills 1 in 5 Americans, but experts say it's preventable. As February is Heart Month, we take a look at the simple steps to keep your heart healthy.
And later, honoring a legend, a man who dedicated decades to the Iditarod and its dogs receives a lasting tribute. How the race is remembering Dr. Stuart Nelson.
Ridge of high pressure remains with us across the state. That'll keep us on the dry side for many areas. I'll have more on that. But first at sunrise, 9:21 in Fairbanks, 9:53 in Bethel. Your full forecast is next.
Welcome back. Just about 14 minutes past the hour on this Wednesday morning.
Yeah, getting a check of weather. Aaron had mentioned coming into work this morning, I noticed some of that freezing fog that was kind of lingering around.
Yeah, we've got a dense fog advisory that's in effect for the next several hours, and that fog will likely continue to get thicker as more traffic gets out on those roadways. That warm air inversion, it traps pollutants at the surface. It traps that cold, moisture-rich air, which allows it to condense down to that dew point, and that's why we've got that freezing fog that is forming this morning. Even parts of the interior are seeing some dense fog. 10 degrees currently in Fairbanks with some light snow. We've got some additional snow as you head along the slope, 4 degrees in Kotzebue. 38 degrees in St. Paul, and then out towards southeast, we continue to hold on to this stretch of cooler weather for you. Temperatures in the teens and the 20s, 14 degrees currently in Juneau. Now, looking at that avalanche danger as things remain fairly quiet across South Central, it is on the low side. With that said, accidents can still occur on low days, particularly in days like today when we've got that warm air inversion, and you take into account the adiabatic lapse rate, which is roughly about 5 degrees, 5.5 degrees per 1,000 feet. So as you climb about 3,000 feet into the atmosphere, you're talking about roughly a 15 to 20 degree temperature swing compared to what you're seeing at the surface. So it will be warm in some of those higher elevations of the mountaintops. So be prepared for the possibility for some avalanche concerns, even though it is on the low side. That drive time index this morning sitting at a 2. Just watch for some of those slick spots. Anytime that we do have that freezing fog, it will create additional slick roads across South Central, and you'll really feel that when you see when you turn your vehicle left or right down any of those roads. So just take it easy this morning. That ridge of high pressure stays with us. It is flattening as we see that return to some colder air along the slope out towards the northwestern Arctic Borough. Here across South Central, out towards southwest Alaska, will remain up under that ridge of high pressure. Southeast, you'll be on the northern or the eastern side of that ridge, which will drive in that northerly flow, keeping those cooler conditions with you for the rest of this week. And temperatures and precipitation also staying on the dry side. Now, looking at that return to some colder conditions, primarily impacting areas north of the Seward Peninsula and then out towards the slope. Into the interior, we'll see some colder conditions arrive later this week. We'll see afternoon highs dropping back into the single digits and overnight lows below 0. But as far as the southern coastline, we're going to continue to hold on to this well above average warmth for the time being. So for Fairbanks, you can see the chance for some snow stays with us through the close of this week. 1 to 4 inches looking possible for the interior. There's that colder weather arriving into the weekend, and then we warm back into the teens and the 20s next week. For southeast, we've got clear and chilly conditions, 30s and 40s to be expected today, and across South Central, more of the same. We've got those 30s along the coast, inland areas, teens and 20s. Now, gap winds will increase once again from Seward out towards Whittier, so be prepared for winds up to 40 miles per hour. That will keep those wind chills in the teens for you. The cold spot into the Copper River Basin, we'll see many areas likely staying near 0. Sunny and chilly into the valley with temperatures in the teens. Overnight lows still dropping into the single digits and the teens as well, so be prepared for those colder mornings. Could see another round of some freezing fog tomorrow. Slow warming carrying us near freezing into next week.
All right, thanks, Aaron.
Well, yo-yo dieting is dangerous for type 1 diabetics and can increase their risk of kidney disease. A study by the Endocrine Society found that losing and regaining weight over and over again is dangerous for anyone and can raise the risk of cardiovascular events. But type 1 diabetics in particular have a much higher risk of getting kidney disease if they yo-yo diet.
Not only can babies hear classical music while in the womb, but it can also lower their heart rate. Researchers in Mexico measured the heart rate of fetuses as classical music was played, and it led to stable, more predictable heart rates. The research suggests that soothing music may stimulate and benefit the fetal autonomic system. Heart disease remains the leading cause of death in the U.S., but health experts say many cases can be prevented.
With National Wear Red Day approaching, the American Heart Association is sharing some simple ways to keep your heart strong. Quinn White has this week's health report.
The leading cause of death is heart disease. And so we want to make sure that the American public knows about it and is educated.
It's a startling number. The CDC says heart disease accounts for 1 in 5 deaths in the United States.
We all have one heart. And if our heart is not beating at its best, we can't be our best.
But Kristen Gorge with the American Heart Association says heart disease can be prevented.
It's eating better, being more active, quitting tobacco, getting healthy by getting healthy sleep, managing your weight, controlling your cholesterol, managing your blood sugars, and managing your blood pressure.
Friday is National Wear Red Day to bring awareness to the disease.
Really increasing awareness is the first step in the fight against heart disease. It's every time you feel your heartbeat, it gives you that opportunity to remember my heart is important and I need to be caring for it.
A healthy heart, a healthy life. Quinn White, Alaska's news source.
The American Heart Association's Go Red for Women luncheon is February 14th at the Denina Center.
Thanks for listening to our podcast. Click subscribe so you can get the latest podcasts from Alaska's news source automatically and stay up to date with breaking news and in-depth reporting available for free 24/7 with the Alaska's news source app.